What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for February 23rd, 2023. Quick housekeeping thing before we get into today's episode. New Back to the Future dropped last night. The YouTube video is also up on our YouTube channel. Talk a little Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier with my dad. My dad, who is the biggest Ali fan that I know of. We discuss why he liked Ali being a Philly guy or Philly area guy over Joe Frazier, who was the hometown hero. He gave his thoughts on that, and we just kind of reminisce a little bit about the good old days in Philly sports. He talks a lot about some of his earliest memories with the Phillies, Eagles, Sixers, and things like that. I highly recommend it. It's a little bit longer, but it definitely was I'm going to have him on again. It was very entertaining. He brought a lot and has a lot of good things to say. And so check that out, Back to the Future with a PH, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on our YouTube channel. Also on there, I did say there will be no Back to the Future next week, and I was a little bit off. I'm going to Mexico the first week of March, and I was thinking it was next week. It's not. So there will be a Back to the Future. We're going to do a little something on the Sixers, more on that in a minute. But be sure to check out Back to the Future with a PH wherever you get your podcast. All right, today's Philly Sports Black History Spotlight. We're going to dive in a little bit to how the Phillies, the players, the manager, and the fans treated Jackie Robinson, more so in his rookie season, but I mean it was over the course of his entire career. If you ever seen the movie 42 with Chadwick Boseman, you see firsthand how this went. But in an interview, Jackie Robinson said that obviously each city, and I'm paraphrasing here, but each city had brought its own issues when it came to his race and how they were treated, or how they treated him. He said, but Philly was hands down the most vicious, and it was led by their manager, Ben Chapman. Again, he's very prominent in the movie 42. To the point where they had this fake pose with a bat to kind of make it, because Chapman got a lot of shit for it. And it was obviously, there was rumors that they held the bat because Chapman didn't want to actually shake his hand. So that was his way. It was totally and completely, Robinson said, a PR stunt. But, I mean, he led the hatred, Chapman did, and he was the one that was telling his players to spike him and just call him the names and everything. And on top of that, you had the fans who didn't treat him very well either. So it was just a very, very dark and just bad time in Philly sports history. And I know this is going to sound funny, but we do a good job sometimes of giving ourselves a black eye. But I think this one is, to me, way worse than any of the things we have done as a fan base. And it's just, and I know some people were like, oh, well, it was the time. And yeah, but I mean, it was just uncalled for. But yeah, so led by Ben Chapman, they just played dirty, called him names. Lee Hanley, who was a veteran player who had just started, I think, with the Phillies that year, actually was so appalled by what was happening that he went down and apologized at one point during one of the games to Jackie Robinson about the way that the fans or the players and everything were treating him. And he said it's all on the manager. He was like, not everybody on this team feels that way, even though that's some of the things they're saying. They're following just the orders of the manager. And at that time, obviously, there were guys the Phillies weren't a very good team. So there were guys who probably felt that if they didn't do this, they would lose their playing time, might get cut or whatever. So it was just a very dark and messed up time. But shout out to Lee Hanley for having the courage, because he didn't play for the Phillies after that. Of course, he was near the end of his career, but that was sort of like a career suicide for him. But this shout out to Jackie Robinson just for enduring all that, and boo to you, to the Philadelphia Phillies team and manager Ben Chapman for doing this. And obviously, the Phillies didn't have a good record when it came to signing black players. It was 10 years after Jackie Robinson broke in that they gave John Kennedy a chance. And they still screwed that up because he was supposed to be their starting shortstop. We talked about that earlier this month. So in 2016, the city officially apologized to Jackie Robinson's widow, and in a way kind of helped. Hopefully, it was going to help start some of the conversations in race and everything. But just a dark cloud over the city at that time and just their treatment. And again, if you ever watch the movie 42, you'll see a lot of that. So that is our Black History Spotlight for the day. All right, Sixers back in action after the All-Star break tonight. They take on the Grizzlies. Right out of the gate, they have a tough schedule over the next few weeks. We're going to learn a lot about this team. Hopefully they can stay healthy and get sharp heading into the playoffs. Hopefully Doc cannot mess up his rotations. But we are going to talk a little Sixers next week on Back to the Future. But like I said, they get started tonight, and it's going to be a brutal schedule right out of the gate. So if they can survive and still be one of those top 3 picks, I think heading into the playoffs, they should be a good team. And I've said this a lot of times, and a lot of people are sleeping on the Sixers, and they're like, oh, it's Milwaukee or Boston, blah, 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 blah. If the Sixers are on and they're playing the way they're capable of, and Doc is not messing up the rotations, they can beat anyone. And we saw that in the Denver game a few weeks ago. So the key is for some reason, they don't do well against Boston or Milwaukee. So that's why seeding is going to be important. So hopefully they can get – you don't want to play Boston or Milwaukee in the second round, having that mental block of not being able to get out of the second round with them. But we'll see. Eagles are being linked to a couple new defensive coordinators. Chris Shula, Don Shula's grandson, who actually was a defensive back coach for the Rams. They've been linked to him, as well as Jesse Minter, who is the Michigan defensive coordinator, who I wouldn't mind. I feel like that's an outside – I would like that hire if it's true. Again, nothing was official or anything like that. So more on that as we get to it. But for today, let's go back to 2019. February 23rd, 2019. The Flyers took on the Penguins in the NHL Stadium Series down at Lincoln Financial Field. Flyers won that game 4-3 in overtime. They scored 2 goals in the third period by pulling their goalie to tie the game at 3. And then Claude Giroux hit the game winner in overtime. He finished the game with a goal and assist. Jacob Voracek was the player of the game, though. He had a goal and 2 assists. For the Penguins, Cindy Crosby had a goal and assist. Unfortunately, it was probably the highlight of the Flyers' 2019 season as they missed the playoffs. The Penguins would go in and get swept in the first round. But we know the following year was COVID, and the Flyers somehow were, based on where they were in the standings, were able to play in the seeding tournament portion when they resumed play and got hot and made it to, I believe, the Eastern Conference Finals that year before falling off the next 2 years. But on this day, back in 2019, the Flyers beat the Penguins 4-3 in the Stadium Series at Lincoln Financial Field. I know there's a lot of logistics and everything that go into this, but I think the Flyers have done it twice. They played at Citizens Bank Park as well one time. And to me, I think it's really cool. I would love to actually go down and see one of these. Like I said, I know there's a lot of logistics, but I think it'd be cool for the NHL to do more of this if possible. But we'll see. But like I said, on this day in 2019, Flyers beat the Penguins 4-3 in overtime at Lincoln Financial Field. Sixers in action tonight. The Eagles are still feverishly looking for a defensive coordinator. And this day in our Philly sports Black History moment, we talked a lot about just the bad treatment of Jackie Robinson by the Phillies organization. If you want to see more on that, like I said, check out the movie 42. It's not really an exaggeration. That's really what happened. I read a lot of firsthand accounts of that. So also, don't forget, go check out Back to the Future wherever you get your podcasts or watch the video on YouTube. Go have yourselves a Thursday. It's supposed to be 70 degrees today in Philly. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.